Welcome to the Rugby Obsession Deep Dive.
Glad to be here.
And before we even get started unpacking the absolute madness of today's topic, make sure you hit that subscribe button to Rugby Obsession. We love having you with us as we, break down the greatest game on earth.
For sure.
So think about this paradox for a second. How does a team win the most grueling, just brutal test rugby tournament in the Northern Hemisphere, yet mathematically remain ranked behind the exact team they just stole the trophy from?
Right. It doesn't make intuitive sense.
Exactly. That is the contradiction we are looking at today. We were pulling from a really fantastic piece by Colin Newbold over at Planet Rugby to examine the fallout of the stunning 2026 Six Nations climax.
Yeah, that article really nailed it.
It did, because right now, the official World Rugby algorithm is telling a completely different story from the power rankings just dropped by All Blacks legend Sir John Kirwan.
It's basically the ultimate clash between cold, hard data and the eye test of a rugby legend. Because the climax of this Six Nations tournament provided the perfect storm for this debate. You had France claiming the title with 4 wins, sealing it in the most dramatic fashion possible against England.
I mean, a 48-46 scoreline in a test match is practically unheard of.
It's wild. It's basketball numbers. And it all comes down to Thomas Ramos stepping up with the clock in the red to kick the winning penalty.
And the heartbreak for Ireland in that scenario is just monumental.
Oh, completely crushing.
Because Andy Farrell's men go out on Super Saturday. They do exactly what is asked of them by beating Scotland, and they are essentially, waiting in the clubhouse to pop the champagne.
Right. They thought they had it in the bag.
Yeah. And then a single swing of Ramos's boot in Paris completely shatters that reality.
It completely shifts the emotional narrative of the entire year. But as you alluded to, while the emotional narrative belongs to France, the mathematical reality of the sport, well, it does not.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let me rephrase. Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because this is where the math starts to feel entirely disconnected from reality.
It really does.
Right. It's like winning Best Picture at the Oscars, but then watching the runner-up make $1 billion more at the box office. Despite France winning the Six Nations and pulling off that cinematic finish, they remained 4th in the world ranking.
It's worth.
Meanwhile, Ireland, the team that just lost the title, sits in 3rd place, a full 1.5 points ahead of the French.
Exactly.
And sitting comfortably above both of them. The Springboks at number 1 and the All Blacks at number 2. So how can a team survive the gauntlet of the Six Nations, take the trophy, but mathematically stay behind the runner-up?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you have to look at the mechanics of the World Rugby ranking system.
Right.
It is essentially a zero-sum, ELO-based point exchange. It is not designed to reward who had the best 6-week run in Europe. Yeah, it's designed to measure sustained multi-year consistency. Every time you play, you are putting your ranking points on the line.
So it's cumulative.
Precisely. And the algorithm is heavily weighted based on the existing gap between the teams and whether you are at home or away.
Right. So if you are the 3rd-ranked team playing the 4th-ranked team, beating them by 2 points at home isn't going to trigger a massive algorithm swing.
Exactly. You don't get a huge payout for that. Furthermore, you have to consider the historical reservoir of points.
The reservoir.
Yeah. Ireland built a massive mathematical buffer through their historic winning streaks over the last few years. The algorithm remembers everything.
It doesn't forget.
No, it doesn't. A narrow 2nd-place finish in a single tournament does not drain a multi-year reservoir of points overnight. It is a slow bleed.
Wow.
So while France gets the silverware, the math dictates that Ireland's broader body of work over the last 3 years still makes them statistically superior.
It is the brutal reality of an algorithm. It lacks sentimentality. It doesn't care about a clock in the red penalty. It only cares about the underlying data points. But of course, rugby is played on grass, not on a spreadsheet.
Thank goodness for that.
Right. And how the legends of the game view these power dynamics is where the debate really heats up. Sir John Kirwan just released his own top 5 list, and his perspective completely ignores the official math.
Sir John Kirwan is looking at the landscape through the lens of cultural momentum and internal team dynamics rather than cumulative data.
Yeah.
And his conclusions are, well, they're guaranteed to upset the established order.
That is putting it mildly. Let's look at Kirwan's top 5. He places the All Blacks at number 1, the Springboks at 2, France at 3, Ireland at 4, and he leaves the 5th spot as a toss-up between Australia or Scotland.
A very Southern heavy list.
Very. And if you are finding this breakdown as fascinating as we are, please take a quick second to hit subscribe to Rugby Obsession. It really helps us out. But getting back to Kirwan, here's where it gets really interesting. New Zealand had a dismal, highly underwhelming 2025.
They really did.
It was bad enough that Scott Robertson was sacked and Dave Rennie was brought in as the new head coach. I mean, I get hometown pride, but isn't it frankly a bit insulting to South Africa to put the All Blacks at #1 right now?
It's definitely a bold claim.
He is essentially valuing potential and a coaching change over the actual proven results of the Springboks.
What's fascinating here is the psychology of a new coaching era. And Kirwan is making a very specific calculation about leading indicators in the sport.
Leading indicators like what?
Well, he isn't looking at New Zealand's 2025 win-loss record. He is looking at the domestic engine room, which is Super Rugby.
Ah, okay.
Kirwan points out that since Dave Rennie took over, the sheer violence and intensity in Super Rugby has just skyrocketed.
Really?
Yeah. He noted that the domestic game looks as high-class and ferocious right now as it did before South Africa exited the competition.
So he is using the franchise environment as a crystal ball.
Precisely.
If the players are bruising each other at a world-class level on Fridays, they bring that steel to the test arena.
Exactly. In the Southern Hemisphere, franchise intensity is the ultimate barometer for national success.
Right.
If your domestic pipeline is soft, your test team gets exposed. Kirwan is arguing that Rennie has instantly elevated regional standards. He has changed the cultural baseline.
Yeah.
So, to Kirwan, putting New Zealand at #1 isn't about disrespecting South Africa, it's a projection.
It's looking forward.
Yes. He sees a battle-hardened pipeline generating a level of raw intensity that he believes no Northern Hemisphere team can match when the pressure is truly on.
And if Kirwan is prioritizing the raw, brutal intensity of the Southern Hemisphere to fill his top 2 spots, his view on the Northern teams tells us exactly what he thinks of their tactical resilience.
It's not a flattering view.
Not at all. Now, getting back to Kirwan's list, he explicitly stated he is, quote, worried about the Northern Hemisphere.
Right.
He acknowledges the rugby is entertaining, but he thinks the wild inconsistency is a massive red flag. And the most glaring casualty of that inconsistency, England.
Oh, absolutely.
They are completely erased from his top 5.
And when you analyze the structural trajectory England has been on, Kirwan's omission is entirely justified. The baseline completely dropped out from under them.
It really did. According to the article, England went into the tournament sitting in the top 3 globally, riding an incredible 11-game winning streak.
Which is huge.
Right. You look at that momentum and assume they're an unstoppable force. But then they suffer 4 successive defeats, tumbling down to 6th in the world, sitting behind Argentina.
A massive fall.
To me, it's like building a massive high-performance sports car, right?
Yeah.
And you're just cruising on the highway, and suddenly you blow out all your tires at once. As long as the weather is perfect, like their 11-game streak, it runs great.
Yeah.
But the second they face real tactical turbulence, the lack of a baseline system causes the whole thing to just collapse.
That is a highly accurate way to frame it, and it explains the exact mechanism of their freefall.
Yeah.
Winning 11 test matches requires peak emotional and physical output, but sustaining dominance requires a tactical system that works even when you play poorly.
Right. You need a safety net.
Exactly. When a team relies heavily on momentum or a few key ball carriers having the game of their lives, they are incredibly fragile.
It's too volatile.
Yes. The moment an opposition analyst decodes their kicking game or their set piece falters under pressure, they don't have a reliable plan B to fall back on.
The system breaks down entirely.
Precisely. And this is exactly why Kirwan favors a team like Scotland or Australia for his 5th spot over England.
Even though England might have a higher ceiling on a good day.
Exactly. Scotland and the Wallabies might be sitting around 7th or 8th officially, and they might not go on an 11-game tear, but they offer a predictable floor.
Right.
You know exactly what their structural baseline is. Kirwan is asking us to recognize that in Test rugby, a volatile ceiling is useless if your structural floor can completely vanish over the course of 4 weekends.
It is a harsh reality check.
Yeah.
Momentum is a false idol if the underlying mechanics aren't bulletproof.
Absolutely.
Now, we have explored the perspective of a New Zealand legend who clearly views the global game through a Southern-centric lens.
Very true.
Let's test Kirwan's theories against another giant of the sport. Springbok great Victor Matfield also weighed in on this, and his analysis of the European powerhouses takes us into a completely different tactical direction.
Matfield is one of the most astute analysts of the forward battle and territorial dominance.
Yeah.
What is particularly telling is what he chose not to say in response to Kirwan.
Right. The piece notes that Matfield wisely ignored the bait. He didn't even address Kirwan putting the All Blacks ahead of the Springboks.
He just brushed right past it.
Exactly. Instead, he pivoted entirely to the battle between France and Ireland. And his evaluation of the northern threat has shifted significantly.
It really has.
Going into the Six Nations, Matfield believed France was going to be the Springboks' biggest hurdle at the 2027 World Cup. But now, he states very clearly that Ireland has surpassed France as the ultimate danger.
For a South African World Cup winner to shift his primary focus to Ireland immediately after France wins the Six Nations is a massive endorsement.
It's huge.
And it is rooted in how he views their attacking architecture.
So what does this all mean when we look at the specifics? Matfield praised Ireland's recent performances by highlighting their absolute clarity.
Right.
He said they are incredibly confident and know exactly the brand of rugby they want to play. But he didn't just speak in generalities. He zeroed in on the 12-10 axis.
The midfield dynamic.
Yeah. He specifically praised Stuart McCloskey at inside center for constantly denting the defensive line, and then pointed to Jack Crowley at fly half, noting Crowley's growing confidence in taking the ball flat to the line.
This raises an important question about how you actually manipulate modern world-class defenses.
Okay, how so?
Well, Matfield is zeroing in on the 12 channel because test match defensive line speed has become simply too fast to just pass the ball around.
Right, you can't just outrun them to the edge anymore.
Exactly. You cannot just shift it wide and hope for the best. You have to use a player with McCloskey's specific physical profile to aggressively dent the line first.
Just smash right into it.
Yes. When he clashes forward and forces 2 or 3 defenders to commit to bringing him down, he acts as a gravitational pull. He compresses the defensive space.
It creates the chaos needed for the next phase.
Exactly. And that is where Crowley's mechanics come in. Because McCloskey has compressed the defense, Crowley gets an extra half second.
And in test rugby, a half second is an eternity.
It's everything. By taking the ball incredibly flat, meaning he is running right into the teeth of the defensive line before making his decision, Crowley forces the remaining defenders to freeze.
Wow.
Yeah. If they commit to him, he tips the ball wide. If they drift wide, he steps through the gap.
It is lose-lose for the defense.
Exactly. Matfield is looking past the Six Nations trophy and seeing a surgical, highly choreographed Irish system that knows exactly how to manufacture space under extreme pressure.
It is such a brilliant contrast in perspectives. You have Kirwan arguing that raw, untamed intensity from the Southern Hemisphere pipeline is the ultimate weapon. And then you have Matfield dissecting the granular, millimeter-perfect tactical execution of Ireland's inside center channel as the true global threat.
It's fascinating.
It really underscores why we can't rely on a single metric to understand this sport. We started by looking at the cold algorithm of the world rankings, which rewards years of steady data points but ignores the emotional reality of a team's current form.
Yeah.
Then we brought in Kirwan, who completely disregards the math in favor of cultural momentum and franchise intensity. Finally, Matfield grounds us in the actual physical mechanics of line speed and tactical precision.
It perfectly illustrates why rugby is the ultimate chess match.
So true.
The scoreboard tells you who won the day, the algorithm tells you who won the decade, but the tactical analysis tells you exactly how the game is evolving right beneath our feet.
Absolutely. And this is where we want to turn it over to you, the listener. We want you to drop down into the comments and tell us which lens you are looking through.
We'd love to hear it.
Do you trust the official mathematical algorithm that keeps South Africa and New Zealand at the summit? Do you agree with Kirwan's assessment that Northern Hemisphere rugby is simply too structurally volatile to trust?
Or maybe you're with Matfield.
Right. Are you buying into Matfield's analysis that Ireland's surgical 12-10 axis makes them the most lethal team on the planet right now? So let us know your thoughts.
And as you think about that, I want to leave you with a completely different ripple effect to consider.
Oh, I like the sound of this.
We have highlighted 2 divergent paths here. Dave Rennie driving Southern Hemisphere rugby toward hyperphysical, high-collision intensity, while Ireland perfects a highly choreographed, tactical, phase-based system.
Right.
If these 2 philosophies continue to accelerate in opposite directions, what happens to the global refereeing standard?
Oh, wow, that's a great question.
Will World Rugby eventually be forced to rewrite the laws of the breakdown to bridge the gap between these 2 completely contradictory styles of play?
It could get messy.
It will. When raw intensity collides with surgical precision, the referee is going to be caught squarely in the middle, and how they interpret the ruck might end up deciding the next World Cup.
What a phenomenal thought to leave on. The law book itself might become the ultimate battleground between these hemispheres.
It just might.
Well, thank you so much for joining us as we unpack the layers of this incredible sport. Please hit that subscribe button to Rugby Obsession one more time so you are always in the loop for our latest deep dives. Thank you for listening to the Rugby Obsession Deep Dive, and we'll look forward to you listening to our next episode.